Before we get into today's episode, let me ask you something. Do you know what your current level of English really is? Understanding your level is crucial to tracking your progress and ensuring your hard work is paying off. That's why I've created a quick and easy English level test that you can take right now for free. Find out your level instantly. Just head to thebritishenglishpodcast.com/testme or check the link in the show notes. Hello and welcome to the British English Podcast, the show that aims to increase one's cultural awareness and improve your British English at the same time. And today we have a real culture-focused episode as the other week I was scrolling through my Instagram. You know, not mindlessly. I'm a mindful scroller. Is that a thing? This reminds me actually, in the UK they have a campaign against drinking and driving, and they managed to boil the whole message down to just the word think in a very specific font and colour. As in, think about it, don't drink and drive, not think, let's drink. But maybe that should be attached to the usage of social media. Think, don't just be doom scrolling, Anyway, I was mindfully absorbing social media and came across a skit of an Italian girl in the UK who is approaching the checkout in a supermarket, and the cashier has a very, very thick London accent who really throws the non-native customer off. And with some comical internal dialogue, the Instagram reel was incredibly captivating. So much so, I reached out to the creator, who is called Aurora, and it turns out she has lived two lives, one in Italy and one in the UK. And after asking her to come on the show to talk about it all, here we are. So, without further ado, I give you a conversation with Aurora from aurora.online language lessons. Have you ever wondered if you're making real progress in your English learning journey? Knowing your level is the key to recognizing your improvements. I have a fantastic tool for you, a free English level test that gives you an instant result. Take a few minutes now to discover your level and continue your learning journey with confidence. Visit thebritishenglishpodcast.com/testme or click the link in the show notes to find out your level of English today. Hello, Aurora. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. The sun is shining in London, is it not?
Finally. I couldn't wait. It's been pretty miserable so far.
It has been, but yes, some blue sky. I was even sunbathing whilst editing a podcast this morning. I felt very smug. Have you been able to appreciate the weather today?
Well, I've been very busy working. I think I'm going to be very busy this afternoon as well, so it's going to be hard to enjoy it. But I had a lovely bank holiday weekend, even though Monday was pouring down with rain. So, yeah.
Let's talk about that straight away. So you're working as a teacher of English, right?
Actually, I am an MFL teacher in secondary schools here in the UK. I teach Spanish, Italian and Latin.
Wow.
But I've got my sidekick with, I set up my own business and my own school of English, specifically targeting Italians, because I feel like my experience being an Italian in the UK has really given me an insight into what it is like to deal with British speakers and British life in general, getting accustomed to the culture and the language and the humor. So, yeah, I've got two jobs going on. I have finally come to the decision that I'm quitting school, or my physical school, and pursuing my my dream of my my own school. So far, we've got 300
Amazing.
students per term, so it's going really well, and I'm going to continue doing that.
Yeah, really cool, really cool. So I came across you through seeing your social media on Instagram. I saw some of your hilarious reels of you. It reminded me of Peep Show. Have you seen that show, that comedy sitcom?
No.
Okay. So there's a couple of guys that sort of coined the POV internal dialogue comedy technique of outwardly portraying what they're thinking by just staring at the other person. And I feel like you've managed to do that in your reels. So one of them I saw was your supermarket example where you go up to the checkout and you're trying to make small talk with the checkout person. But the connected speech was really throwing you off.
Yes, exactly. So I studied acting at uni. I did drama and modern languages. So I've always tried throughout my career to join these two passions, which is foreign languages and acting. And when I moved to the UK to go to university to study drama, I was the only foreigner in the class. So everybody else, came from a different culture, a different kind of theatre. We tend to come from a very naive, cringy, funny theatre, whilst British students come from Shakespeare. So that was very different. But obviously, I really struggled with the language. I could barely, act myself in English. So I think that really developed my, imitating native speakers and try to sound like one for career purposes really helped. And that's what I'm trying to do with my own school and my own teaching to this day, when I teach it, even when I teach Italian or Spanish, I try to do it, getting my students to feel the foreign language.
Lovely. Yeah, I can really see that. I feel like in just the social media, which is impressive. So yeah, let's go to your Italian background. Can you tell us about your upbringing in Italy?
Yeah, so I grew up in a very small coastal town which is 50 minutes from Nice in France. So I live by the border. And yes, I mean, it was very outdoorsy. I spent a lot of time outside. The weather obviously was really, really amazing. We had the sea, we had the mountains. So I really spent all my days hanging out with my friends outside in the main piazza, going to cafes, having a stroll in the main square, going shopping, eating focaccia. And yeah.
So I've got a student that is potentially from where you're from, Ventimiglia.
That's quite close. Yeah.
Quite close.
I'd say 40 minutes. Which is nothing for London distances, but for, probably I've been to Ventimiglia once in my life, even though I live not far away from it.
Yeah.
In London distances, 40 minutes is my commute to work.
Yeah. Wow. Isn't that amazing? So are you closer to the border than Ventimiglia?
No, I'm more towards Genova. It's called Imperia.
Okay. So you grew up in Italy and you moved over to London when you were 18?
It was in London. I moved to Essex.
You moved to Essex?
To Colchester when I was 18.
To Colchester. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you experience England before then?
Yes. So basically a family friend who's French and had a house in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
It was grew up with my mum. Ended up being a teacher of French at the University of Essex. And my sister before me, who's 9 years older, was super passionate about languages. So she was convinced by the family friend to go to university in the UK. And it was a massive thing at the time because that was probably 2004, something like that. Nobody went abroad to study at the time. And she went to the University of Essex and I followed after. So I would spend every summer in Colchester specifically because my mum's friend's daughter, Elsa, was my age. So we would do exchanges. She would come to me in Italy and I would spend the summer with her in Colchester. But my English wasn't good at all. I mean, it was like a teenage. I was better than my classmates, let's say, because I had more exposure, but I wasn't fluent at all. But it definitely gave me an insight that was very helpful when I did move to the UK when I was 18.
Right. And so what was it that led you to want to move permanently to Essex?
So I applied to university. Essex itself was the only university that offered drama and modern languages. So I really wanted to be an actress, but I also loved languages. So I thought I'm going to combine these two passions. And the only joint degree in the country was the University of Essex. So I was like, what are the chances? That sounds great. And I went for that. I did quit acting after uni I could have gone to drama school,
Right.
but I thought, I'm a foreigner. I've got an accent. How many roles are there going to be that require someone to have an Italian accent? My dream was over. I was like really struggling with my pronunciation and accent because, even though, other Italians may think, oh, she speaks great English, her accent is great. You can't hear she's Italian at all. Actually, in an acting setting, any sound, will give away the fact that I'm not English. So that really upset me. And that's probably also why it turned into the focus of my school. You don't have to be native to sound like one. You can learn how to sound like one. Obviously, a native is a native, and a non-native is always going to be a non-native. But I want to show my students that I'm a realistic goal in terms of their pronunciation. You can reach my level if you really want to. If I managed, they can. And what happens with native teachers is unrealistic for us foreigners. And that's why I think it's important to show that, also as non-natives have value when it comes to teaching English.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I was thinking this morning, how most of my non-native teacher colleagues are probably more skillful than my native, and myself included as a native teacher, because you've got to learn it from the ground up. You know the pitfalls of the learner inside out, and you actually know the grammar. There are great grammarians that are teachers of English who are native, but I'm certainly not one of them. And it's because during our childhood, we just absorb the language rather than learn it through the grammatical structure. So yes, I totally respect a non-native teacher.
It's also the school system's fault because they don't teach grammar in schools. Whilst as Italians, for example, or also Spanish speakers as well, study their own grammar loads in school. You guys don't. So it's really hard for you to apply it and know about it.
Yeah, I would. Do you have any idea why that is?
So I think the school system shifted from a less grammatical approach around the 60s, 70s. And only recently they're trying to reintroduce grammar in primary schools. The problem is the teachers themselves don't know the grammar because they did study in the 60s, 70s, 80s, etc.
Yeah.
So they have to learn it themselves. So they're shifting back to a more grammar-based approach, but it's only recent. We'll see the products in a few years, hopefully.
Yeah, maybe a whole generation.
Yeah, exactly.
But I wonder why they shifted away from the grammar in the 60s.
I think they thought it wasn't useful. Even the way they taught foreign languages in the 60s, they tried to step away from the grammatical approach, which I really thank them for. Whilst in Italy, we still learned English as if it was ancient Greek and Latin. So
yeah,
I think that's positive with foreign languages, to try to expose them more to real English, real Spanish, rather than, this is the way it's written, this is the way that it works. We know the grammar really well, but can we speak it in a real situation? Do we understand the cashier when she speaks to us in a real situation? No, we don't. So surely we should spend more time trying to understand real English and the way it's spoken, rather than tables of irregular verbs with no end.
Yeah, that's a very good argument. So you said about the accent being a thing in drama. When was that?
I graduated in 2015.
Because I'm just thinking how things have changed somewhat in the last 5-10 years in the approach to dialects, and how, like the BBC, for example, they're much more open to having a diverse array of dialects being presented as the broadcaster, right?
Yes and no, in the sense that, yes, they're accepting people with regional accents, Irish, Welsh, Scottish, etc. But I haven't seen a foreign speaker yet. I haven't seen someone with a foreign accent on TV, as far as the news are concerned, yet. So for us foreigners, we're one more step away, I'd say. Maybe one day.
Well, what about, I'm thinking of Sofia Vergara, the
Yes.
South American to US actress. She's famously known for her non-native accent.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, we've got Italian chefs on daytime TV.
Gino da Campo.
Yeah, there you go. What about that?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yes, that's what. So the reason why I quit is because I'm always going to be cast as the Italian character. And I thought, I don't just want to play the Italian character, I also want to play other roles.
Right.
You know, he's not an actor, he's a chef, so it doesn't matter what accent he's got.
Yes.
Sofia Vergara, yes, okay, but it's one exception. How many roles are there? You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Unless I'm going to be cast for the Dolmio advert every year, you know, there's only so many roles. So what I thought is, with the social media, obviously, initially I started with teaching like in a very traditional way. And then I started introducing my drama sketches, and I started playing the Italian character with their accent, and then other characters who didn't have an accent. And I think I played with that quite well, and I ended up turning my social media into the career I've always wanted. But yeah, it took a while.
Yeah, when did you start it?
I started doing videos in 2020, but as I said, it took a while for me to include my drama in them. Maybe a year later, 2021, 2022. Last year, I just went for it.
Fantastic.
And yes. So we've got different characters with different names. People know their background. There's the Italian boyfriend. There's the very posh Sarah girl who has a very incredibly posh accent when she speaks. And she's always correcting Laura's pronunciation. And then you've got the cashier. So, you're white, love. Yeah. What do you want today? And she's got like more of a Cockney slang. So I'm working on producing those accents as a non-native speaker. For me, it's so difficult to do that. Some people are like, oh, why don't you do a Scottish one? And I'm like, you know, I'm still not a native speaker. It's really hard for me to imitate regional accents of a language that's not my own.
Yeah,
so
that is, yeah. Imagine, I'm just trying to imagine myself imitating not just an Italian accent, but a regional Italian that is really hard to understand. Yeah, that would be impossible.
Do you speak Italian?
Kudos to you. No, that's probably going to be even harder, isn't it? To not know the language as well. I'm focusing on Spanish, but still, I would say elementary sort of level.
Yeah, there we go. It's as if you were to produce an accent from Madrid rather than South American or from Murcia, for example. You know, they've got a different accent and regional pronunciation, and it's hard for you as a non-native speaker to be able to even pitch that.
Yeah, so tricky, so tricky. Let's talk about the cultural differences that you may have noticed between Italy and the UK. Because you moved to the UK when you were 18. Did you notice anything particular that stood out to you?
Yeah, so I was considered by several people quite rude because I'm incredibly direct. I'm already direct as an Italian. So as an Italian person, I'm a very direct person, and let alone in a British setting. So I would literally say what I thought all the time. And I really had to think carefully about everything I said and the words, choose the words really carefully. When that is not your first language, you just want to communicate. You don't really think about the register. You don't really think about the choice of words and how they may be perceived by the other person. And that was really tricky. Not so much at uni because it was an informal setting, but when I became a teacher and I started working in schools with secondary school British children, kids, teenagers, that's when I struggled because I would get angry and want to tell them off, but I really had to be careful what words I chose. For example, growing up, I was taught that shut up just meant stai zitto, be quiet, right? And I never realized till I got into an actual school setting and I was the teacher that shut up was a very rude way of telling a student to be quiet. So I would literally go to the student and say, shut up now. And they would all freeze and go like, you can't say that, miss. You can't say that. And I was like, why not? I want you to be quiet now. Be quiet now. Shut up. So, you know, I think the reason why these sketches are successful is because I very much think about myself being a foreigner in the country and what I struggled with the most, and the amount of times I made a fool of myself by getting the words wrong and things like that.
Yeah.
So a very funny one is, for example, when I was one of the first dinners at my husband's family place when we were dating. We were 23 or something, because we met at uni.
Right.
And there was his mum, his stepdad, uncle, all the siblings, etc. And his mum had a cold sore on her lip. And in Italian, we just call it herpes.
Oh, yes.
Herpes. So in front of the whole table, I just went, "Oh, Anne, I didn't know you had herpes." And everybody in the table froze. And that was the first time, I don't know, I can't remember if it was the first dinner we had together. And she turned around very embarrassed and she said, "What do you mean? I haven't got herpes. Why would you say that?" And then I realized that probably that wasn't the right word. Anyway, so all of my sketches are based on real life situations.
That is fantastic. Yes. So
Yeah.
before Sydney, we were living in Germany, and we would be told, my wife has a cold sore from time to time. And yeah, when we would go into the pharmacy, they would say, "Oh, mouth herpes. Yes, I can help you there." So funny that she didn't say, "How did you know?" That would have been prying into something very private. But yeah, I can imagine that being very embarrassing in the moment. Did you embrace those moments, like being like, what are you going to do? I'm Italian. Or were you quite shy and worried about it?
I'm not shy about anything. I've always used the Italianness as an excuse. I'm like, "It's okay. Oh, we say that in Italian. It's fine." I've always tried to laugh about it, but it depended on the situation. I end up working in a very, very, very posh private school, and those kind of mistakes, when I was literally the only foreign teacher in school, me and another French lady, I couldn't afford to make them because people around me weren't used to deal with foreign speakers, and so they would not be very impressed.
Yes, I see. It seems like you still hold dear that you are Italian. That is your culture, where you've come from. Is there anything particular, apart from maybe being direct, that you hold dear to yourself, or that you want to keep alive, even though you're in a different country now? We will be leaving the free version of this episode here for today. But if you did want to continue listening to this conversation, then head over to the BritishEnglishPodcast.com, where you can sign up to the Premium Podcast or the Academy. The Premium Podcast gives you the ad-free version with transcripts, a full glossary and flashcards, whereas the Academy gives you all of that plus a whole lot more, including vocab video lessons, writing assignments, weekly Zoom classes, and you can also get paired with a new speaking partner of a similar level to yours each month to really get your speaking practice in. But if you were just here for the free version of this episode, then I thank you very much. Congratulations for getting to the end of this part, and I hope to see you back here next week for another episode. I've been your host, Charlie, on the British English Podcast. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Before you go, make sure you know where you stand in your English learning journey. I've created a free English level test that you can take right now to find out your exact level. It's quick, easy, and gives you instant results. Head to thebritishenglishpodcast.com/testme or check the link in the show notes. Because tracking your progress helps you stay on track. We can't use track twice, guys. No, let's do that again. Yep, we don't have time. Oh. All right, we'll just delete this last sentence then.